Domestic violence is defined as a cycle of power and control. And as such, it is an ongoing issue that often escalates within relationships. Domestic violence can occur between partners, boyfriends, girlfriends, same-sex couples, married individuals, cohabitants, siblings, parents, and even between parents and children. However, the key lies in each person's mindset, knowing how to control emotions during moments of anger to prevent tragic incidents that could lead to lifelong regret. Unfortunately, in today's case, the victim was not so fortunate and met an utterly tragic end. At approximately 9:01 p.m. on December 6, 2022, the Milford Police Department received a 911 call from the 17-year-old son of Julie Minogue, according to court documents. The boy was awakened by screams from downstairs. Initially, he thought it was just a random noise, but when he heard his mother's screams and a male voice shouting, he realized something was terribly wrong. He rushed to the kitchen and witnessed a horrifying scene: Ewen Dewitt standing next to his mother's body, holding a bloodied axe in a state of panic. The boy heard Dewitt yell, "She didn't believe me." He immediately ran back to his room, locked the door, and called 911 to report that his mother was being attacked with an axe, fearing Dewitt would pursue him. He punched through the window screen and jumped out from the second floor to escape. During the 911 call, he described in detail what he had witnessed, including seeing Dewitt stare directly into his eyes while standing next to his mother's body. Meanwhile, the 3-year-old child of Minogue and Dewitt, who was in the living room, was physically unharmed but in a state of shock. When police arrived at the scene, they found the child sitting on the sofa, unresponsive, clearly suffering from severe psychological trauma due to what they had witnessed. The Milford police quickly dispatched 3 patrol cars to the scene, located less than 5 minutes from the station. When they arrived, Salem Walk Street was eerily silent, with only the flashing lights of the police cars piercing the darkness. Apartment 76, a low-rise building with a narrow entrance, showed no signs of disturbance from the outside. However, as the officers pushed open the door, they were met with a gruesome scene. Upon entering the living room, the officers were hit by the overpowering smell of blood. On the kitchen floor, Julie Minogue, 40 years old, lay motionless in a large pool of blood. Her face was disfigured by deep gashes, and her body had sustained at least 13 axe wounds. Concentrated on her head, neck, and chest, the weapon, a wooden-handled axe approximately 60 centimeters long, was found a few steps from the body, its blade still coated with fresh blood. In the living room, another chilling sight confronted the officers. The 3-year-old child, shared by Minogue and the perpetrator, sat silently on the sofa, with vacant eyes. The child neither cried nor spoke, seemingly in such deep shock that they could not respond. The officers quickly removed the child from the scene and handed them over to medical personnel, while the crime scene investigation team began collecting evidence. The apartment showed signs of a sudden attack. There were no indications of forced entry through the front door, but a first-floor window was open, suggesting the perpetrator may have entered this way. The household items were largely undisturbed, except for a few blood splatters on the kitchen walls and floor. Investigators noted that the attack appeared to have been carried out with chilling precision, targeting the victim without leaving much chaos. The coroner was called to the scene shortly after. A preliminary report confirmed that Julie Minogue died on the spot due to severe blood loss and traumatic brain injury. The estimated time of death was just minutes before police arrived, meaning the perpetrator could still be nearby. The axe was taken to the forensics lab for fingerprint analysis. Julie Minogue's 17-year-old son, after being taken to the hospital for evaluation, provided his initial statement. He recounted that he was sleeping on the second floor when he was awakened by his mother's screams. Rushing to the kitchen, he saw his mother lying on the floor, blood everywhere, and a man standing nearby holding an axe. He immediately recognized the man as Ewen Dewitt, the father of his 3-year-old brother and his mother's ex-boyfriend. Panicked, he ran upstairs, locked his bedroom door, called 911 and escaped by jumping out a window. The boy's testimony was the first critical lead. He described Dewitt wearing a black jacket and jeans, with a cold, emotionless expression. He also revealed that his mother had repeatedly expressed fear of Dewitt, especially after obtaining a restraining order against him the previous week. Ewen Dewitt, 45, quickly became the primary suspect. Investigators reviewed Dewitt's record and discovered a history of domestic violence. A former Afghanistan war veteran, Dewitt lived in West Haven, about 15 minutes' drive from Milford. Acquaintances described him as hot-tempered and unpredictable. He had a minor criminal history, including charges of disorderly conduct and violating protective orders. However, no one suspected Dewitt was capable of such a brutal murder. Dewitt began dating Julie Minogue in 2018, and they had a 3-year-old son together before their relationship ended in 2021. Police found that Dewitt had become obsessed with Minogue after she ended the relationship. His harassing messages revealed jealousy and anger as Minogue tried to rebuild her life without him. One message, sent on November 13, 2022 read, "You'll regret leaving me. I'll make you pay." In 2019, Minogue had sought a protective order after Dewitt threw a playpen at her while she was holding their newborn son, resulting in 5 staples to her head. More recently, between November 12 and 14, 2022, Dewitt sent over 200 harassing messages to Minogue, violating an existing protective order. On December 1, 2022, Minogue was granted a full no-contact order, prohibiting Dewitt from contacting or approaching her and her children. Police also reviewed local security footage. A camera from a nearby convenience store captured a man matching Dewitt's description walking on Salem Walk about 30 minutes before the 911 call. The footage was unclear, but the black jacket and gait matched the son's account. Julie Minogue, 40, was a devoted mother to 3 children, 2 older sons, 17 and 15, and a 3-year-old son shared with Dewitt. She worked at a retail store in Milford and was described by neighbors as friendly, hardworking, and always putting her kids first. However, her life was overshadowed by her tumultuous relationship with Dewitt. According to court records, Minogue had repeatedly tried to escape Dewitt. She reported threats, harassment, and abuse to the police multiple times. In a protective order application in November 2022, Minogue wrote, "I'm afraid he will kill me. He keeps texting, calling, and showing up near my house. I don't feel safe." These words, revisited after the crime, became a haunting prophecy. Based on the son's testimony and security camera evidence, Milford police issued an arrest warrant for Ewen Dewitt on the morning of December 7, 2022. Additionally, fingerprint analysis on the axe revealed only one set of prints, identified as Dewitt's. Authorities determined that Dewitt might be hiding in West Haven, where he rented a trailer as a temporary residence. A task force, comprising officers from Milford and West Haven, was formed to track him down. Police also coordinated with neighboring agencies, sending alerts to hospitals, train stations, and bus terminals in case Dewitt attempted to flee the area. Several of Dewitt's friends and acquaintances were contacted, but none knew his whereabouts. At approximately 3:00 a.m. on December 7, 2022, a West Haven patrol officer spotted an old pickup truck matching the description of Dewitt's vehicle. Parked near a trailer park, upon investigation, they found Dewitt asleep inside the trailer, about 10 miles from the crime scene. Dewitt was arrested without resistance. Inside the trailer, police discovered a black jacket stained with dried blood and a pair of gloves, both sent for DNA testing. Dewitt refused to answer initial questions, only muttering, "I don't know what's going on." He was taken to the Milford Police Department and held on a $5 million bond. During his first interrogation on December 7, 2022, Dewitt initially denied any involvement in the murder. He claimed he was in West Haven the entire evening and never went near Minogue's home. However, when confronted with the security camera evidence and the son's testimony, Dewitt began to change his story. After nearly 3 hours of questioning, Dewitt admitted to visiting Minogue's apartment on the evening of December 6th. He claimed his initial intent was to talk and convince Minogue to reconcile. However, when Minogue refused to open the door, Dewitt broke the first-floor window to enter. According to Dewitt's account, an argument erupted when Minogue demanded he leave and threatened to call the police. Dewitt said he lost control when Minogue mentioned taking their 3-year-old son far away so he could never see him again. "She wanted to take my son," Dewitt said. his voice trembling. "I couldn't let that happen." Dewitt claimed he brought the axe from his truck for self-defense, but as the argument escalated, he used it to attack Minogue. He struck her repeatedly with the axe, only stopping when he saw blood pooling around her. Realizing in panic that he had killed her, unbeknownst to him, Minogue's son had witnessed the entire event. Psychologists brought in to evaluate Dewitt described him as showing signs of antisocial personality disorder and controlling tendencies in relationships. They noted that his persistent harassment of Minogue prior to the crime indicated an inability to accept rejection and a propensity for violence when feeling emotionally threatened. Dewitt's testimony was dismissed by prosecutors as unreliable, as it contradicted physical evidence. The prolonged attack and number of blows suggested clear intent to kill, not a spontaneous act. Furthermore, Dewitt bringing the axe to the scene was seen as evidence of premeditation. The 3-year-old son witnessed the entire incident. This event likely left a profound trauma on the young child. Having seen his father kill his mother, if the 3-year-old were called to testify, the defense might challenge the child's competency as a witness. This would require the child to undergo a psychological evaluation process, which could be a lengthy and traumatic experience, especially for a 3-year-old. To avoid further trauma from subjecting the young child to a competency evaluation and testifying about such a horrific event, the court decided to rely on the suspect's guilty plea for sentencing. Ewen Dewitt was charged with first-degree murder, unlawful entry, and child endangerment. The preliminary trial was scheduled for early 2024, but in March 2025, Dewitt agreed to a plea deal with prosecutors, avoiding a lengthy trial. Under the agreement, he pleaded guilty to murder and child endangerment in exchange for the dismissal of some lesser charges. The sentencing hearing took place on May 22, 2025 at the Milford Superior Court. The courtroom was tense, with Minogue's family, reporters, and dozens of local residents in attendance. Prosecutor Margaret Kelly presented her case, describing the murder as cold, calculated, and brutal. She emphasized that Dewitt had ignored the restraining order, planned the attack, and carried it out in front of the victim's children. This was not a moment of lost control. Kelly stated, "This was the act of a man determined to destroy Julie Minogue's life and her family." The Minogue family also had the opportunity to speak. Sandra Topper, Minogue's mother, tearfully said, "My daughter begged for help, but no one listened. Now, we're left with only pain and memories tainted by his brutality." As Prosecutor Kelly concluded her presentation, Dewitt suddenly stood up, shouting obscenities, "Rotten hell. You trash? You don't know anything about me." 6 security officers immediately restrained him, forcing him back into his seat. Judge John C. Flanagan warned that any further outburst would result in Dewitt's removal from the courtroom. The outburst shocked the courtroom. Many of Minogue's relatives broke down in tears, while reporters captured every moment. Some attendees later said they felt terrified by Dewitt's aggression. Even while he was handcuffed, Judge Flanagan sentenced Dewitt to 40 years in prison without the possibility of parole. He called the case one of the most brutal murders this court has ever seen, and emphasized that the sentence was meant to protect the community from Dewitt's danger. He also offered condolences to the Minogue family and called for improvements in the system to protect victims of domestic violence. The Julie Minogue case sent shockwaves through the Milford community and raised questions about the legal system's effectiveness in protecting domestic violence victims. In 2023, the Minogue family filed a lawsuit against the Milford Police Department and the city of Milford, alleging they mishandled Minogue's requests for protection. The lawsuit claimed an officer failed to promptly process an arrest warrant for Dewitt, potentially contributing to her death. The case also prompted Connecticut to pass a new law in 2024, requiring GPS monitoring for individuals who violate restraining orders in domestic violence cases. Named the Julie Minogue Law, it aims to prevent similar tragedies in the future. The Minogue family established a GoFundMe to support her 3 children, particularly the 3-year-old, who will grow up without a mother and carry psychological scars throughout childhood. The Milford community held several memorials, with hundreds attending candlelight vigils and praying for Minogue. Under the streetlights of Salem Walk, Julie Minogue's memory lives on in the hearts of her family and community. Her case is not just a story of a horrific crime, but a reminder of the importance of listening, protecting, and acting swiftly to prevent violence. Ewen Dewitt, with his uncontrollable rage, took a mother, daughter, and friend. But Julie Minogue's legacy, her love for her children and resilience in the face of adversity will forever inspire those who continue to fight for justice. The case concludes here today. Thank you for following this story, and we hope you've had a moment of reflection. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated on the latest cases in the days to come.